Hi, it's Katrina. My friend David is actually going to be helping me out today, so we can give you a little bit more variety. Everyone say hi.
Number 10. Biblical Giants. As far as scientists are concerned, nobody in the 21st century has ever seen a biblical giant with their own eyes. However, there is evidence that has been discovered in Israel that suggests these beings lived during the days of the Bible. The Nephilim are described in the Bible as the sons of fallen angels and the daughters of men. When the angels saw how alluring the human females were, they couldn't help themselves and began breeding with them. The offspring of the unnatural union were called Nephilim, giants that walked the face of the earth. They were said to be so terrible that God sent a flood to kill everything on the planet and wipe the slate clean. The Nephilim supposedly stood much taller than ordinary humans, but were otherwise quite similar. If they were to be found in the archaeological record, the only difference would be that they had much larger bones than us. In the Book of Enoch, these giants supposedly lived on Mount Hermon in Israel. Coincidentally, that was the same place where the biblical king Og rose up to fight the Israelites. Og was allegedly buried underneath a mysterious rock formation called the Wheel of the Giants. It is a series of concentric rings with a large mound in the center covering a mysterious hidden chamber. In Deuteronomy, Og was the only remaining man from the days before the flood, other than Noah and his family. It's taught in the Jewish tradition that he survived by clinging to the side of the ark as a stowaway. It's been said that Og was a giant who slept in a bed over 14 feet, 4 meters long. Unfortunately, his bones have not technically been found or documented, but many Christian scholars believe the Wheel of the Giants is the burial place of the last Nephilim. Number 9. Biblical Visions. At the Out-of-Body Experience Research Center in Los Angeles, scientists believe they have established the scientific reason behind visions of angels and other biblical encounters, specifically the ones that are discussed in the Bible. 30 volunteers were instructed on how to have out-of-body experiences. They were given instructions on what to do mentally upon waking in the middle of the night or becoming lucid just after a dream or nightmare. These procedures were supposed to culminate in bizarre experiences that could be perceived as encounters with heavenly beings. 15 out of the 30 volunteers experienced such encounters. The volunteers who reported visions of angels were told to recreate the story of Elijah from the Bible. Elijah goes into the wilderness and falls asleep beneath a tree, exhausted and ready to die. Just before he slips away, an angel wakes Elijah and tells him to eat. When he wakes from his vision, Elijah finds a loaf of bread and a jug of water. The researchers figured this biblical passage would be the best for sleepers to have a vision of their own. Surprisingly, 9 of the subjects dreamed of meeting an angel and eating food, while the other 6 only dreamed of encountering an angel. The scientists are now claiming that every encounter with an angel described in the Bible was likely the result of an extremely lucid dream and a man with a pad of paper nearby. Number 8. Encounter with the Devil. There was a nun who lived in the 17th century and may have had a frightening encounter with the biggest villain in the Bible. Her name was Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concessione, and she lived in Sicily in the late 1600s when she was supposedly possessed by Lucifer himself. Maria was born in 1645 and entered the Benedictine convent at Parma de Montechiaro when she was only 15 years old. In the year 1676, she woke up one morning covered in ink with a mysterious letter written in an indecipherable language sitting in front of her. When her sisters at the convent asked her what happened, she said she was possessed by Satan, Lord of Hell, and that he had forced her hand into writing the message. This may sound like the premise of some B-rated horror movie, but it's 100% true. The letter is still around to this day and was only recently deciphered, 940 years later, thanks to a group of Italian computer scientists. A team from the Ludum Science Center used a new program to do the decoding. The scientists loaded all the languages Sister Maria may have known into the program, and the letter turned out to be a bizarre mixture of characters from Latin and even runic Greek. The letter describes the Holy Trinity as dead weights. It says God was invented by man, and it finishes off by saying God and his religion are a failed system that worked for no one. They believe Maria likely suffered from schizophrenia, which is why she wrote the strange letter. Others believe the bizarre ramblings are proof she really was possessed by the devil. Number 7. The Leviathan. The Leviathan is described in the Bible as an incredible beast, a sea creature with a serpentine nature. The Leviathan was not a sea serpent, but a terrifying animal with a powerful neck and sharp teeth that exhaled smoke from its nostrils like a seething cauldron. Researchers believe the Leviathan in the Bible may have been an extinct species of serpent-like whale called the Basilosaurus. The remains of this creature were discovered at the Wadi al-Hitan site in southwest Egypt. In English, the place is called the Valley of the Whales. It's a dry wasteland where giant skeletons of ancient extinct whales can be seen poking out of the sand. The whole area was once a sea, but that sea is gone and thousands of years of wind has slowly revealed the bones of the dead marine monsters. Some of these beasts were Basilosaurus, creatures that could grow to be an estimated 70 feet, 21 meters in length. They were apex predators and looked like underwater dragons. Biblical scholars believe that passages from the book of Job can be connected directly to the Valley of Whales. When the ancient Egyptians came across this place in the desert and saw the crushed bones of sea monsters lying in the dust, they interpreted them as real monsters. They became Leviathans and were assumed to have been squashed by God or devastated following some catastrophic drought. Another theory is that Leviathan was a blanket term for all whales, creatures Job and others would have been able to see in the ocean. Number 6. Ronald Hunter and a meeting with demons. Ronald Hunter had a terrifying encounter with demons in 1949, and priests performed an exorcism on the young boy 70 years ago. It was a harrowing ordeal that would become the inspiration for the famous book, The Exorcist. This biblical encounter began in Washington, D.C., when 13-year-old Ronald learned how to use a Ouija board with help from his beloved Aunt Harriet. After his aunt passed away, Ronald began to experience strange things. He heard scratching coming from the floors and from the walls, his mattress randomly moved, and he began to show signs of psychological issues. Ronald's family was desperate to help the boy, so they consulted everyone from their doctor to a psychiatrist. They also spoke with their minister, who was worried about demonic possession, and he suggested that the family seek out the help of the Jesuits. In February of 1949, the church granted Father E. Albert Hughes permission to perform an exorcism. The Catholic priest strapped the boy to his mattress and began the process, but Ronald broke free and attacked the priest, leaving the ritual unfinished. The family then moved to St. Louis, where 2 Jesuits agreed to try again with an exorcism. They believed the boy was possessed by 10 demons, not just one. It took night after night of repeatedly performing the exorcism until finally, the priests broke through. The boy snapped back to reality, saying that he had a vision of Saint Michael defeating Satan on the battlefield. Thankfully, that was the end of Ronald's demonic possession. But whether he truly did have demons living inside of him or not, nobody will ever know. Do you think demonic possession is possible, or do you think there are other explanations to explain the symptoms? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. Number 5. The snake with legs. After the serpent persuades Eve to taste the forbidden fruit, and Eve convinces Adam to eat it as well, they all get in trouble from God. Adam and Eve are banished, and God curses the serpent to crawl on its belly and eat dirt for the rest of its life. This seems fairly normal until you scrutinize the passage and realize it implies that before the event, the serpent had legs. This is an often overlooked passage in the book of Genesis. In 2019, scientists from Argentina discovered a fossilized ancestor of modern snakes that once had legs. This seems to back up the idea that God cursed snakes to no longer have their limbs. The weird thing is that the fossils are 100 million years old. That means they predate the Bible by a significant amount of time. However, scientists say that snakes likely lost their front legs millions of years before their hind legs. It's possible that in the era the Bible was written, there were still some remaining snakes floundering around with 2 stubby hind legs. Number 4. Chariots in the sky. In the book of Revelations, Zechariah has a vision of the apocalypse. At one point he describes witnessing chariots of fire streaming out from the clouds. These chariots were made of solid iron and bronze, and were led by red, black, and white horses. In the year 66 AD, Roman Emperor Josephus had a similar vision. He supposedly saw with his own eyes an army in the clouds, metallic chariots blazing across the sky. Shortly after the emperor saw these mysterious things in the heavens, he attacked Jerusalem and burned their great temple to the ground. Emperor Josephus was hardly the only person in the ancient world to see something strange in the sky and interpret it as the chariots of God. And there has been a long debate as to whether these fiery chariots were divine prophecy or extraterrestrial visitors. NASA scientist Richard Stothers believes that with the introduction of the Bible, people in the 1st century began to interpret extraterrestrial encounters as having divine visions from God. These people thought they were seeing God's will or his army of angels hiding in the clouds, when really they may have been seeing alien ships hovering in the sky. Number 3. Biblical unicorn. One of the creatures mentioned in the Bible is the unicorn. Strangely, it's discussed in casual conversation with the likes of lions and goats. In the book of Job, unicorns are not mythical beasts or things from legend, but very real animals that walked alongside humans. New archaeological evidence has shown that humans may have seen unicorns in the days the Bible was written. Biblical authors could have been some of the last people who physically sighted unicorns before they went extinct. In Kazakhstan, researchers found the skull of a creature that looked like a rhino mixed with a horse. The creature has been dubbed the Siberian unicorn, and its skull was dated at just 29,000 years old. Before this skull was discovered, scientists believed the Siberian unicorn went extinct 350,000 years ago. Keep in mind that the real unicorn didn't look anything like what we know from fairy tales, and it wasn't a beautiful white steed with a golden horn. Instead, it was a furry horse-like beast with a giant rhino horn sticking out of its forehead. And although this particular specimen is 29,000 years old, it's likely not when it went extinct. The creature, which was roughly 6 feet, 1.8 meters tall, and 9,000 pounds, 4,082 kilograms, may have lived until just recently. If the authors of the Bible wrote about the creature as though they themselves had seen it, there's a high probability that they did. Number 2. The Angel and the Senator. In 2013, Illinois Senator Mark Kirk claimed that he encountered 3 angels. The Republican senator said he was visited by these beings while recovering from a stroke. The angel stood at the foot of his bed in Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago and asked if he wanted to go with them. However, Mark told them no and said that he wasn't done living on Earth yet. According to Mark's surgeon, Dr. Richard Fessler, the senator's brain functions were completely normal at the time he supposedly encountered the angels. His thought process was normal, and his mental state was perfectly fine. Mark is now one of the 8 million Americans who believe to have physically seen with their own eyes angelic messengers from heaven. Like all 8 million of these alleged sightings, there is no possible way to confirm or deny what they saw, and there has been no definitive proof ever captured on camera. Number 1. The Rooster Snake. The cockatrice, a rooster and snake hybrid from medieval mythology, is one of the strangest creatures mentioned in the King James Version of the Old Testament. The cockatrice is mentioned multiple times, usually brought up as some kind of punishment. For example, Jeremiah 8:17 says, "For behold, I will send cockatrices among you, and they shall bite you." It was described as a weird animal born from the egg of a chicken, but with the wings of a bat, the tail of a snake, and the legs and head of a rooster. In the small English village of Whirlwool, one of these biblical monsters allegedly terrorized the citizens in the Middle Ages. A duck supposedly laid an egg, which was then hatched by a toad, and the creature that was born grew to be a monster. It looked like a miniature dragon and was cared for by the villagers, who were curious about the creature until it grew so big it started killing them. Whether the cockatrice or some other mutant creature terrorized the village, we will never know. However, the legend is very real, and it bothered the locals so much that until the 1930s, they supposedly refused to eat duck eggs. Do you think ancient angel sightings were really just UFOs in the sky? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.